Okay, today in this video is what I want to do is I'm going to do a review on Net10 Wireless, and specifically I'm going to do a review about their BYOP or BYOD, bring your own phone or bring your own device. You see it referred to both ways. But I want to speak specifically about that program that they have. And even more specific than that, I'm going to talk about their AT&T side of that. I've not used the T-Mobile side of that. If you're in a T-Mobile coverage area, that's definitely something that you might want to think about. Would be a good option. But for me, I'm not in a T-Mobile area at all. So I've never used T-Mobile. I've never used T-Mobile proper. I've never used any prepaid T-Mobile service. So I just cannot speak to that. But I do want to speak to something that I do have experience with, and that is the AT&T side of Net10, and which, by the way, is really the same thing as the Straight Talk AT&T SIM, and I've used Straight Talk AT&T as well. I was on Straight Talk AT&T, decided to try Page Plus, and then I came back, and when I came back, I just decided that I was going to try Net10 instead. And so I've been on that since I've come back. Okay, so here's their main website. You can see here how it talks about $50 a month for unlimited data, talk, and text. So that's how much it costs for this plan. If you sign up for their auto refill program, where it charges you every month, then they deduct that down to $45. So if you set up that auto refill, then you can get it for $45 a month. Now, I want to talk about this unlimited for a second. So for data, technically it's unlimited, but in reality it's not. Let's see if we can find it somewhere. If you'll notice on this unlimited, there's an asterisk, and down here it says 30-day unlimited includes 2.5 gigabytes of high-speed data per 30-day cycle. After 2.5 gigs, your data speed will be reduced for the remainder of the 30-day cycle. And then they say high-speed data is restored once a new 30-day plan is redeemed. So for 2.5 gigabytes, you will have high-speed data. After that, after you cross that threshold, then they don't just completely cut you off, but they drop your speed down to so low that it's basically unusable. You won't want to use your phone for internet after that point. You'll say forget that, and you'll find some other means to access the internet after you've crossed that 2.5 gigabytes. And really, 2.5 gigabytes is really a decent amount. I mean, there's maybe 1% or 0.5% of the people in America who need more than 2.5 gigabytes. Those people who need 50 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes, and for whatever reason, I just don't need that much. And for most people, 2.5 gigabytes is going to be plenty. I mean, with 2.5 gigabytes, I can watch, YouTube videos. I can surf all I want, all the email I want. The only thing that I wouldn't be able to do is sit there and watch Netflix for a long period of time. You could not do that. You couldn't stream, any kind of video service for a long time. That'll eat your data up very, very quickly. But for most everything that I want to do besides watching Netflix or my Amazon Prime Video or Hulu or whatever, anything beside that, 2.5 gigabytes is going to be plenty of data for me to accomplish whatever I need to. Then the talk and text is unlimited, basically. You have all you need on that. Okay, so let me talk about several things here. So first of all, let me go over here. If you just Google Net10 SIM, you'll say buy your SIM card. And you'll see here it'll give you options of which SIM card that you want to get. Okay, so it says phone is a CDMA model. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about AT&T phones today. Unlocked GSM phone, that might be like an international phone, international GSM phone or whatever. But down here they have these two specific options of getting an AT&T compatible phone or getting a T-Mobile compatible phone. And if you want to try T-Mobile, if you're in a good coverage area for T-Mobile, then you'd want to get that SIM card. But for me, AT&T compatible is what I want. Now, before I go any further, I want to go over here and I want to show you this coverage map. Okay, here we go. So this is an AT&T coverage map that I'm looking at here, and you know, you could go on to Net10 and look at their coverage map, but really I would suggest getting on AT&T's coverage map if you're choosing that AT&T, and just check their coverage on their map, and that way you can zoom in real close to where you're at, and you can see where you're at. So sometimes I can't tell on these colors, but I think this is the best, which I believe that means that you have 4G under that. One thing I want to say on these coverage maps, and I said it in my other prepaid video, is whenever you're checking a coverage map, if you're like right here on the boundary, and let's say this was, instead of being good, I mean, you're still going to have good service here, but let's say that this color meant that you had no service, and this color meant that you had service, and let's say you were just right on the inside edge of this. Do not assume from that you're going to have good coverage. Always assume that if you're right on the boundary, assume you're on the worst side. That way you don't have problems down the road. You'll just live under the expectation that, maybe I won't have very good service in this area. So check your coverage maps, because really that's the most important thing. People get all upset about what type of prepaid service you're using, but really, it depends on the person. It depends where they're at. For somebody, Sprint coverage may be good. There's not many people who it's going to be good for, but there are some people whose Sprint coverage is going to be good, and that may be their best option. And so, just making the blanket statement that Sprint, just stinks everywhere is just not true. There are some places where it is good. So checking the coverage in your area is one of the most important determining factors on which prepaid service you want to use. Where I live at, they offer Sprint prepaid. If you go to my Walmart, they have Sprint prepaid stuff there, and it's terrible in my area. I mean, I live right on the interstate, and if you get 5 miles away from that interstate, you have basically no coverage. And it's people go in there into Walmart having really no clue about what phones are there, and they look at the phone and they think, oh, that phone looks neat, and they buy it, not realizing they're getting Sprint coverage, and then they go and then they can't get service and they hate it. And so the point I'm making is know what service you're getting and know the carrier that you're going to be using. So whenever you're over here and you choose this AT&T, make sure you get good AT&T service. Okay, so let me put this in. So it says to activate your service, you'll need an airtime PIN. So you're going to have to buy your $50 card first before you can do any of this. Okay, so you can see here that it gives you two options. It gives you like the regular size SIM card, and then it gives you the micro SIM card. Now, like on my AT&T Galaxy Note 2, it uses the micro SIM card. So that's the one that I would want to choose. So you're going to have to figure out which phone it is that you're going to use, and that'll tell you which SIM card you need to get. Like right before my Note 2, I was using the Galaxy Note 1, and it uses the regular size one. But also know this, that if you do have this one, you can always cut it down to make it into a micro fairly easily. You can download templates off the internet and where you can tape it on there and cut it down real easy and change this to this. And in fact, that's what I did. Is I had one of these regular size SIM cards and I cut it down to make it into this. Okay, now I want you to notice something here. I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, but while I'm here, notice that it says about this SIM that it's 4G LTE, and same thing with this one. So these are their newer cards. I don't remember exactly whenever they said they were coming out with the 4G LTE. Net10 I'm speaking about. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 months ago now, somewhere in that neighborhood. So notice these SIM cards, just $7 a piece, so they're fairly cheap. So you're going to have to get the SIM card plus your $50 airtime card. So one of these two. Okay, so here's my Net10 account, my online account, and really there's not very many options that you have on here. You can see right down here, it gives me my service end date is December 10th, 2013. So that's when my service is going to end. I'm going to have to add a $50 time card before I get to there so I can extend my service. There's a few things you can do in here. Like I said earlier, You can set up an auto refill, but there's basically past that, there's just not a whole lot that you can do. Okay, so here's one of the Net10 SIM cards. This is for the $50 unlimited. And so this is one of their older SIM cards. I bought this one before Net10 announced their 4G LTE SIM cards. So actually this is the SIM card, one of these just like this, that I'm using in my phone right now. And you know, there's people who debate whether you can get LTE with these older SIM cards. You're not going to get that debate from me, because